Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, if everyone can take a seat. Inshallah, if everyone can take a seat in the back, all the kids as well. Kids in the back. Yes, you guys. So just want to remind you guys some of the adab of sitting and trying to learn. We want to come as close as we can. We want to pay attention. We don't want to talk over the speaker. And as far as the children, if you have children in the musalla, try to keep them with you. If they're making a little bit of noise, the microphone projects to the hallway. You can go into the hallway. So, but just be mindful of others around you, inshallah. Right? Without further ado, we'll start, inshallah. We're happy to have Sheikh Hasib. Many of you know him. He's an Al-Maghrib instructor. He's a student of University of Medina. He's also very renowned for his famous Sirah tour around the Medina Haram. And so if you ever get a chance to go, make sure you get that tour from him, inshallah, if he still gives it. And try to come as close as you can, inshallah. And without ado, we'll start the topic today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Can you all hear me? It's good? Okay, just give me a second, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala habibina wa nabiyyina Muhammad في الأولين وصل اللهم وسلم وبارك على حبيبنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في الآخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على حبيبنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم كل ما ذكره الذاكرون الأبرار وكل ما غافل عن ذكره الغافلون. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows what we reveal and we knows what we conceal and even knows what the animals feel. We thank Him, we praise Him, and on Him we have reliance. It is to Him we only turn to for our true guidance. And we ask Him for steadfastness, guidance, and to never lead us astray, and for Him to save us on Judgment Day. And we ask Him to send His peace, His blessings, His mercy on the best of human beings and prophets Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, on whom be praise until the very end of our days. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and accept from all of us, Ya Rabbil Alamin. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he came, as you all know, to help us perfect our character. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have been sent and only sent for no other reason except to perfect good character. And character here symbolizes one's relationships, one's dealings with others. And the Prophet ﷺ perfected this through the systematic guidance of his example, and he lived what Aisha radiallahu anha said, what the Quran wanted to ideally represent as what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted for humanity to follow. As you all know, they asked Aisha radiallahu anha, tell us about the Prophet ﷺ. She said one word, she said, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. He was the Quran. His mannerisms, his character was the Quran. And the Prophet ﷺ did so basically embodying the perfection of human character, embodying the ideal in every situation, in every format for any person. So the Prophet ﷺ was spoken to by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and characterized that message in the way how he acted, how he spoke, and how he taught and disciplined his community. To the extent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you were to think of not just Aisha, the closest person to a man is a wife to her husband, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praised the Prophet ﷺ with a characteristic that was ingrained in the Quran, which is the greatest characteristic of any human being. And that is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the Prophet ﷺ in his book, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. That indeed in the example of the Prophet ﷺ is the best uswa. The best uswa for those who seek Allah and the final day, when they will be repaid for their actions, the consequences of their deeds, or the consequences of their sins. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word uswa. Uswa in the Arabic language is a very interesting word. In fact, in the Arabic language, when you want to say somebody is to be taken as an example, like for example, Amr is a good example as a father or a son. Or Fatima is a good example as a teacher. Or Brother Altaf is a good example of a board member in the masjid, for example, right? Or for example, Brother Muhammad is a good example of a father or a teacher. Maryam is a good example of a lawyer. You use the word huwa or hiya, qudwa, ka-tabib, ka-muallim, ka-ab, ka-um. You would say that person is a qudwa. A qudwa means that person is good and a perfect example for that particular thing. Allah didn't say that about the Prophet ﷺ. He didn't say the Prophet ﷺ is a qudwa. He said the Prophet ﷺ is an uswa. Can anybody tell me the difference between the two? For those of you who know Arabic. Why did Allah use the word uswa to characterize the Prophet and not use the word qudwa to characterize the Prophet? Okay. It's a little bit deep, okay? The Prophet ﷺ was characterized by this word because the word uswa in the Arabic language, uswatun hasana, means that he is a best example in everything. Whereas qudwa is he's the best example or she's the best example in that one thing. They could be a good father, but they're a horrible manager. Right? She could be a good doctor, but she's a horrible cook. You know, Allah alam, right? Right? She's a good a teacher, but she's not good at managing her time. So she's good at this, he's good at this thing, but that does not mean they're good at everything. Right? How many people, they're good at speaking, but Allah only knows their internal and actions in their homes. May Allah help us all. The Prophet ﷺ is an example for everyone, in anything, at all times, in any profession, at any private, personal relationship and dealing, or any public stance or leadership position at all times. The Prophet ﷺ is the best example of a person who wants to get married and find a spouse. You will find the example in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. To find love, you'll find the example in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. To run a business, you'll find the example in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. How to run a masjid, how to run a country is in the life of the example of the Prophet ﷺ. How to be a single parent in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. How to deal when you've lost 6 of your children in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. How to live as an orphan, the Prophet ﷺ's life. How to take care of a community of widows and orphans and people who need to seek refuge. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Literally everything. Think of how to deal with the rich, how to deal with the poor, how to deal with people of state and governors and kings, the Prophet ﷺ. He is the perfect example in every single situation. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ was described and characterized by Allah, our Creator, as the best example in everything. In everything. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. So, when we look at the life of Rasulullah ﷺ, you can always look at the life of the Prophet in many different lenses. And that is why studying the life of the Prophet is not a task that you finish the book and you said, I finished studying the life of the Prophet. Or you listen to a podcast and you said, now I finished studying the life of the Prophet. The life of the Prophet ﷺ is something you study until you pass away. Because there's always guidance you can take from his life. And no matter who you listen to, you will find benefit there someone else that never picked up. Studying his life for over a decade now, I love to listen to people reflecting over the life of the Prophet ﷺ because there's always a benefit I never even thought of. And one of the lenses that I started to notice in the life of the Prophet is how he taught how to pass on that discipline and how we deal with each other, regardless of it's the closest people to you or in the public sphere. The Prophet ﷺ had the best balance of that. And I found that in our communities, we tend to be the most imbalanced in that. Why is it that when we are the best to our friends and our neighbors and our coworkers, but when we go to the home, there's a complete different person? It's like Musa outside and Fir'aun in the house, right? Right? Why is that? Why is there an imbalance within us, in our own selves? Why is there, when patience comes to other people, when it comes to the closest people to us, we have the lack of it? And I found that we lack the social balance the Prophet ﷺ taught in his companions. And I called that social intelligence. Social intelligence. How we deal with others, how we deal with ourselves, how we find balance in our relationships, and how we effectively communicate. And the Prophet ﷺ taught this to his companions. And one of the greatest ways we can exercise this is in the story of none other than one of the companions that really took it overboard when it came to some of the practices in Islam, and it took one of his friends to make him realize this is not the example that the Prophet ﷺ taught. And that is none other than the example of Abu Dharr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and Salman al-Farisi. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu and Salman al-Farisi. Two people you would think never became friends if it wasn't for Islam. A Persian man and a very rigid, a very strong-willed and opinionated companion Arab man became some of the best of friends. When the Prophet ﷺ forced them to become brothers in Medina, Abu Dharr took in Salman al-Farisi. Salman al-Farisi, and eventually Allah blessed him with wealth and he moved out. And one day he wanted to visit his friend. So he enters the home of Abu Dharr radiallahu ta'ala. He knocks and he sees his wife, Dharr radiallahu ta'ala anha. Open the door. And she says, Abu Dharr is not here right now, but please enter, sit in the living room, inshallah, he'll be right by. So he says, Assalamu alaikum. And he asks of her situation, how is your state, Dharr? This already teaches you the social intelligence the Prophet ﷺ taught. Number one, a companion checking up on his brother is the social intelligence our Prophet ﷺ taught. This companion didn't just leave people like we do. We only see each other when we're in the masjid. We give our smiles, we ask how you are, that asking, right? In 13 different ways. How are you? How are the kids? How's the job? How's work? And this is superficial. It's not real, right? It's just a nicety of discussion, conversation, right? But for you to get into knowing your brother, it requires inviting each other to your house. It requires breaking bread. It requires checking up on one another. It requires to go beyond the superficial. It requires you to be vulnerable. It requires you to not feel that there's an ego and there's like a show of machoism, or it's all about your status, and so you don't open up. No, it requires you to feel that genuineness. So what happened? He visited his brother, number one. Secondly, they did not have what we can consider the cultural barriers that stop someone visiting their home, and if he's not at home, even, what happens? He would feel comfortable that his wife opens the door and he sits in his living room until he comes. What does this tell you? The conceptualization of what we have of gender separation is not from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The cultural conceptualizations of gender separation we have in our communities, we have to revert and understand what is it that the Prophet ﷺ taught amongst the genders. Why is it okay for Salman al-Farisi to come into the home of his brother? And there's nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing. And for him to ask his wife, how's your situation? I hope everything's okay. And guess what she says? She's honest with him. She says, you know what? Abu Dharr is a man that does not like the dunya. This is what she says. So Salman al-Farisi says, why are you in this state? Why are you in such a state? Meaning she wasn't wearing clothes that were, in any sense, you could say, okay for that time period. And she told him in a very nice way, Look at the social intelligence. She didn't come there, okay, you want to know about my husband? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right? No. This is also from the social intelligence of this woman. That she doesn't expose everything in the house. Oh, you want to know what's in the closet? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Yalla, open the door. This is everything that we have. I'll tell you the... No. Social intelligence requires you to deal with the problem at hand with tact. With a little bit of tact. And this is what this woman understood. So she said in such a beautiful way, Abu Dhar is not a man who likes this dunya. Right? And Salman understood. So he waited for Abu Dhar comes, and alhamdulillah, he welcomes him. He's all, ahlan wa sahlan, welcome. You're going to stay with us tonight, inshallah ta'ala. And he brought him food. Just like any one of us would, right? And he said, Bismillah. He said, you will join me. He said, no, I'm fasting. He said, no, you're not. You're not fasting. He said, no, I'm fasting today. He's like, no, you're not. I'm not going to eat until you eat with me. And I promise I won't eat until you come and eat with me. So Abu Dhar said, okay, I mean, subhanAllah, what kind of guy is this, right? What kind of guy? But subhanAllah, look at this. Look at the genuineness they have in their relationship. That he can speak to him in this way, and he understood from him as a genuine friend. He had an easy heart. He didn't hold grudges. He didn't say, what kind of guest are you? How dare you speak to me in this way? He said, okay, no problem. So he ate with him, broke his fast. Voluntary fast, not like making up something. Okay? Then it came to time to sleep. And he said, okay, this is your bed. Salman al-Farisi, Bismillah, you can sleep, inshallah. He's like, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to go pray. He says, no, you're not. He said, no, this is what? He's like, no, you're not. You're going to go to sleep. He said, okay, fine. So he goes to sleep in the same area, and he wakes up in the middle of the night to pray. And Salman al-Farisi tells him, sit down. You're not going to pray. And he told him, this is the time I want to pray. He said, no, go to sleep. So he puts him back to sleep. Then, he wakes up the third of the night, Salman al-Farisi. And he goes to Abu Dhar, and he wakes him up and said, now, get up, it's time to pray now. Now is the time to pray. We'll pray together. And they pray, then they go to Fajr prayer. Then he tells him, Ya Abu Dhar, you have a right on your body. And your family has a right over you. And other people have a right over you. And Allah has a right over you. So give every person its due right. So what do? They went to the Prophet ﷺ. He's like, Salman did this to me, and I just wanted to make sure what he's saying. When they told what they did, and the Prophet ﷺ agreed with what Salman Farisi said. He said, Salman has said the truth. And it was a lesson for Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu. Look at the social intelligence. Social intelligence from our Prophet ﷺ, if you look at our time today, is the perfect balance of everything and every problem that we are struggling with in America right now. Everything. Balancing spirituality and practice with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Balancing your relationship with your spouse and finding a person that you want to marry and the right person. And balancing your relationship with others. We will now give a small snippet of how the Prophet ﷺ maintained that kind of balance in each of these realms. The first of which is Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu, who was known as a scholarly companion. He accepted Islam when he was 18 years old in Medina. Can you imagine? A young companion, he accepted Islam at 18. He spent time with the Prophet ﷺ. At the end of that learning process, he went and led the scholarship of all of Yemen in his 20s. This is the discipline and teaching of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, I said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, tell me an act which will take me into paradise and will keep me away from hell. Another man asked the same question. Another man asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, tell me what will get me into Jannah and save me from hell and make it short because I can't do too much. Right? We have those kind of people in the masajid, right? Yalla, be quick, summarize so I can go get on my way. There are people like that in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But that was a regular man. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, pray your 5 daily prayers. Okay? And if you can, go to Hajj. And if you do that, you will go to Jannah. He said, that's it? He said, that's it. He walks out, he said, I swear I'm not going to do more. And I swear I'm not going to do less. And he walks out. And people are like, what's wrong with this guy, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, if he's truthful, he's going to go to Jannah. You guys want to see a person of Jannah? That's the person. Mu'adh is not the same status. Mu'adh is a scholar. Mu'adh is going to be an example for a community, for countries. So what does he say? The Prophet ﷺ said to him, you have asked me about a great matter. So number one, social intelligence. Don't ever take for granted what you're taught about Islam. Don't ever take for granted the minor or the major things. Nothing is a small or big issue in Islam. Everything is great in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we in our community deal with issues, there should be no one of sound intellect and intelligence says, why are we talking about this issue? This is not a big deal. For example, our brother comes and announces during Ramadan, brothers, sisters, please don't waste your water bottles. Please don't waste your water bottles. If you're going to open the water bottle, take it with you. Please don't wait. And he's making like 15 announcements, right? What does somebody say? What is wrong with him? Why are we not talking about Palestine, for example, right? Right? What is this such a big issue? Why are we making a big deal? Because Allah told us to be people who take care and have responsibility of the earth. Antum mustakhlifina fi. You're the ones who are responsible. Antum khulafa fil ard. You're the ones who are the successor of this earth. So don't abuse. So everything is a great matter in our faith. Nothing should be like considered nothing or disregarded. A person of intellect understands that Allah brings balance with you conserving water, with you taking care of animals, with you how you dress, what you eat, as well as saving countries and all these greater issues as well. So he wanted to exercise this to him. Then he says to him, this is a great matter you've asked about, yet it is easy for the one Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made easy for. وَإِنَّهُ لَيَسِيرٌ عَلَى مَنْ يَسَّرَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. This is an easy matter if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes easy for you. What is the social intelligence here? He wants to put in his mind, don't ever think that you will reach status based on your own faculties. That you will gain and reach a title or a place without the help of Allah. Don't ever think that. Always submit yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says to him, worship Allah without associating partners with Him. Establish the prayer. Pay the zakat, fast in Ramadan, and make pilgrimage to the house. Then he says, this is the easy part that Allah makes easy. But should I not guide you towards the means of all good? Everything good goes back to it. He said, what is that, Ya Rasulullah? He said, fast. As-sawmu junnah. Fasting is a shield. It's a protective shield for you. The word in Arabic for what the Prophet ﷺ said as a shield is junnah. It comes from the same word as jannah. It comes from the same word as jinn. Okay? It means that was protected and shielded from view. Hidden. So jannah is that protective, hidden pleasure that we haven't seen, that exists. And junnah is the shield that protects you. And jinn is the unseen that exists around us. So he said to him, fasting is a protector, shield. Charity wipes away sin as water extinguishes fire. Many of us, when we commit a sin, for example, like you missed Fajr, this is a sin. Were you sleeping? Yes. But did you not set your alarm? No. You committed a sin. If you did not take any measure to wake up for Fajr, you committed a sin. You committed a sin. Did you intentionally stay awake until the middle of, past the normal time human beings go to sleep? That they would regularly wake up if you literally slept at a normal time? Yes? And you didn't wake up for Fajr? That's considered a sin. To sleep at a time you know you will not wake up in normal human capacity is a sin. Is a sin. So what is the Prophet ﷺ guiding us to in social intelligence? You're going to commit sins. As a scholar, Mu'adh. But remember that if you follow a good deed with a bad, Allah will extinguish the bad. So during that day, give charity. You see a homeless man, don't just say, okay, I don't have anything to give you. You know, carry maybe a water bottle, box, for example, in your car, and you give some water. The Prophet said the best charity is water. I remember, subhanAllah, you don't understand how these things also affect others. And we did this in my car. We would have like, you know, just a box of, a can of, for example, Coke or Sprite, etc. For you doctors, don't get on me, Coke is bad for you. Okay, fine, right? Just notice the objective of what I'm saying. And I remember we just pulled up on a stoplight, and in Austin, a homeless man came to the thing. We didn't have, you know, anything to give, so we always would give this water bottle or whatever we had. And my younger brother remembers this from the age of like 7 or 8. All the way till he reached high school, and he started to volunteer at a homeless shelter. He's like, because I remember that my father and mother or brother would used to give this water bottle to people. And it's not something we ever told him, but it's something that is built in a child by practice. So he said to him, remember that charity wipes away sin as water extinguishes fire. And the praying of a man in the depths of a night is what is the means and source of all good. Many of us need to build this practice. To build the practice of praying in the night. And this is among the first practices of Islam, literally. And many of us also, unfortunately, don't understand what this means. People think that you need to go sleep in the middle of the night, wake up for tahajjud, when there's like half an hour left, and no. Abu Bakr used to pray at the very first part of the night his entire life, as far as we know. And Umar used to wake up at the end. Abu Hurairah used to wake up in the middle of the night. So literally, if you finish your Isha prayer, you prayed your Sunnah, and you prayed 2 rak'ah, you're considered as someone who prayed in the night. Praying in the night is any time after Isha until Fajr. So for example, you leave here, you go home, before you sleep, you pray 2 rak'ah, and you go to sleep. You pray your witr after that. You go to sleep, you consider as someone who's prayed in the night. It's that easy. What do? We big up the whole issue. We have to sleep the whole way, wake up in the middle of the night, set my alarm clock at 4 o'clock in the morning. No. Build yourself to that. But make it a habit to pray sunnah before you sleep. This is praying in the night. The Prophet ﷺ then recited, those who give up their beds and call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with fear and hope, and they spend in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's cause out of their charity, from what we have bestowed on them, no person knows what is kept hidden for them of joy and reward for what they used to do. Then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, shall I not inform you of the head of all matters, its pillar and its peak? So he said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. So he said to him, the head of all matters is Islam. Its pillar is prayer. Islam will not stand without prayer. And its height and its peak is jihad. Then he said, shall I not tell you of the foundation of all that? What is the basis of all of that? He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. So he took hold of his tongue. The Prophet held his tongue like this. And he said to him, restrain. Restrain your tongue. Restrain your tongue. What of the greatest social intelligence the Prophet ﷺ can teach? What are we taught in school in America? Ever since I was young, you're independent. You have a voice. You have an opinion. Say it as much as you want. Be loud. No. Our faith teaches us to restrain our opinions, to be confident of our views, to be confident of our ideals, but to restrain ourselves from constantly wanting to be heard. The Prophet ﷺ said, restrain this. Restrain your want to be heard. Restrain your opinions. Restrain your tongue. Restrain your retorts, your responses to people. Restrain this. He said, Ya Rasulullah, will we be taken to account for what we say? Look at the social intelligence of Mu'adh radiallahu anhu, the question he had. He said, Ya Mu'adh, may your mother be bereaved of you. This is an Arabic expression, which means, pay attention to what I'm telling you. Of course, he said, Ya Mu'adh, is there anything that throws people into hellfire on their faces or on their noses except what they speak with their tongues? This is from the social intelligence of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when it comes to teaching us that of the most important matters that we need to consider is what we say with our own tongues. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when it comes to families, was a man that embodied the balance between taking care of your family and taking care of the state. But he also transferred this to his companions. One time, the Prophet ﷺ avoided his wives for an entire month. For those of you who've been to Medina, you know the Rawdah. The Rawdah is a space, the Prophet ﷺ has said, between my home and my mimbar is a garden from the gardens of paradise called the Rawdah. Okay? So how did this place look like? If you can imagine this being the house of the Prophet ﷺ. It was literally 7 meters by 5 meters. That's it. That's the house of Rasulullah ﷺ. Meaning your garage was literally larger than the house of the best of creation. In fact, some of your walk-in closets are bigger than the house of the Prophet ﷺ, the house of Rasulullah ﷺ. It had an open area, which was right here. And it had a wall and the door that would go into the wall. So there'd be a doorway from the outside. Here, this is the outside. You would enter through this door. There's like an open foyer area where he would see his guests. And then a wall in the inside of that area that had a door that would go into this house. This is the sleeping area. That's where Rasulullah lived. On this side, he would have a wall that is shared with the same wall as the masjid. So this wall is the same wall as the wall of the masjid. And that wall there was like a curtain area, right here. It's like a doorway, which he had a curtain that he would walk in through to walk into the masjid. So literally, it's just a doorway with a curtain. He would open the curtain and he would walk into the masjid. So that's what it means when he says, from my home to the mimbar is from a garden of the gardens of paradise. The Prophet ﷺ, one day he decided not to stay with his wives because of a disagreement he had with them. And that was because Hafsa radiallahu anha and Aisha disagreed in front of him. And he said, you know what, I don't want to speak to you all. There's disagreement. Just like any other marriage in general, marital discord, conflicts happen. Even Rasulullah ﷺ. So he said, I'm not going to speak to you all for an entire month. I'm not going to come near you all. So what did he do? The reason why I'm mentioning to you his house is he left the house and there's some stairs from here that go to the top floor. So essentially the Prophet ﷺ slept on the couch for an entire month. And it spread in Medina that the Prophet ﷺ may have divorced all of his wives. Because people talk. People come up with things, right? Did they even check? No. Same thing, same issues back then, right? So what happened? Umar radiallahu anhu and Abu Bakr go and speak to their daughters to see what the matter is. Just like any father and mother would to their daughter or son. So Umar radiallahu anhu goes to Hafsa. Remember that Umar is also the father-in-law of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because Hafsa married the Prophet. He goes and speaks to her and he pokes her in a very harsh way. And he says, how dare you? How dare you speak to the Prophet ﷺ in such a way that you made him do this action? And he's railing and going off on her. And what does she say? She doesn't say a single thing. She doesn't say a single thing. She doesn't expose the difference between a husband and a wife to her father. And this has a condition. If it doesn't necessitate abuse. If there's not abuse in a marriage, and there's normative disagreement, there is absolutely no reason for a husband to go to his mother or father and expose the conversations and the difficulties and the conflicts that he had with his wife. And it is similarly not okay for a wife to do that to her husband with her parents, or her sister, or his sister, any of that. This is not okay. This is actually from the hikmah of the Quran. And This was the social intelligence of the Sahaba. If it's abuse, somebody's physically being abused, somebody's emotionally being abused, somebody's not being treated and has not been resolved among the couples, right? This abuse is, no, of course, there's no tolerance for this. There's no tolerance for that at all, right? No one's going to tell you a woman to have patience while she's physically being beaten by a coward. This is not okay at all. No one in the community should allow this. No one. So in any case, this disagreement did not involve any of that. Of course, it's Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it's a normative disagreement that happens between husband and wife. She did not expose that disagreement to her father. So what did the father do? After chiding her, his daughter, and making her realize as well that, look, you have a part to play in this. Take two to tango, as they always say, right? So I'm not going to take automatically your side just because you're my daughter. This is also from the social intelligence of the Sahaba. So what did he do? He goes and speaks to his son-in-law. He goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He stands by the stairs at the right side of the house, and the Prophet had a guard there. And he asked him, tell the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Umar is here. So he goes and says, Ya Rasulullah, Umar says he wants to talk to you. The Prophet didn't respond. So the man comes down and says the Prophet didn't respond. So he said, go tell him Umar ibn Khattab is here. Like, it's Umar, let him in, it's me. Finally, the third time, the Prophet said, tell him to come in. Umar radiallahu anhu goes and sees and speaks to the Prophet, and this is from the social intelligence that the Prophet taught his companions, that if you're going to be a judge in anything, always see the other side. And especially in marital discord, seek to know what happened. Seek to know what happened. Talk to your daughter or son, and also talk to their husband or wife to get what exactly is the story. When he went there to check on the Prophet ﷺ, he found the Prophet ﷺ was sleeping on a mat, a straw mat that left imprints on the skin of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ got up, Umar radiallahu anhu saw that this coarse straw mat left marks on the skin of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Umar radiallahu anhu, this man who has presence and standing in Islam, he started to cry. And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I've seen the kings of Rome and Persia sleeping on silk and plush pillows. And you are better than them and you deserve better. And the Prophet ﷺ, even though he slept on a straw mat, and his pillow was leather animal skin with date palm tree leaves that are dried, and then a rock underneath. That was the pillow of Rasulullah ﷺ. He tells Umar a great and powerful lesson. That's a lesson for all of us. Look at the social intelligence. He says, Ya Umar, أَمَا تَرْضَى أَنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَلَنَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ. Oh Umar, aren't you pleased and happy that they will have it in this life and we will have it in the hereafter? Social intelligence, don't chase this world. Don't chase material gain. You're not going to find happiness. Be content with what you have. From the social intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ in marital relationships is number one, the Prophet ﷺ never exposed his wives to the disagreements that they have. Neither did he expose the problems of others' wives when they would complain to him. The Prophet ﷺ never escalated issues more than they needed to be. So a minor issue is not escalated. He never listens to me, she never listens to me, because I wanted brown colored sofas and he wanted white colored sofas. And it becomes a major issue in the family. Like, honestly, everything is treated at its level. And people with social intelligence know how to diffuse a situation. As the Prophet ﷺ has said, social intelligence, whoever gives up an argument even though they are right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them a castle or a house at the highest level of Jannah. That also applies to your marriage. A lot of people think that when there's a disagreement, the husband has ego, and so does the wife. So neither of them will maybe diffuse the argument just to be right. As if they're in a stadium and they're arguing with each other And there's going to be like a belt given to the winner, right? Or a trophy, like, mashallah, you won this argument, here you go, right? No. So sometimes it just takes saying sorry. And no one is greater than the Prophet ﷺ, who when after those 29 days were over, he went back to his wife first. Even though he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. But he went to his wife first as if saying, it's not a big deal. We're sorry. So what did Aisha do? She did what any wife would do. You said you're not going to come back after a month. It's only been 29 days. To Rasulullah ﷺ. She's still a woman. She's still his wife. And the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? Okay, I'm not coming for another month, right? No, of course not. He understood. And he said to her, Ya Aisha, the month sometimes is 30 days and sometimes it's 29. This month it was 29. Look at the beautiful character, alayhi salatu wasalam. The Prophet ﷺ has said something which I honestly, when reading the Sunnah, I found to be the hardest hadith to implement in Islam. If you know who the Prophet was, you know what he did, you know the governance he had, and the people that went up to him, and how he dealt with the ummah and the future of Islam. But he said one thing that I found to be so profound and so hard. And my wife said something after this, which was a beautiful explanation. He said, the best of you are the best to your wives. With all of this. He didn't say the best of you are those who are the most trustworthy in your business. The best of you who don't commit riba. The best of you that eat halal chicken all the time, right? The best of you that are mujahideen or ulama. The best of you are those who are the best to your families. In another hadith, the best of you are those who are the best to your wives. That's the best of you. The best, not the ones who fast the most, not the ones who pray Qiyam al-Layl the most, not the ones who give the most in charity and fundraisers, not the ones who mow the lawns of their neighbors. No, the ones who are the best to the closest people in their proximity. What does that mean? How much do we go out of our way in everything in life? Right? We go out of our way. If we have a guest in town, what happens? Like today, they did a barbecue for me, right? And I know you guys wanted to. There was like 3-4, mashallah, from Connecticut. They were like, you have to come to our house. You have to come to our house. I said, I would love to, but I'm traveling the next morning. Next time, inshallah. But what you do, you would go out of your way. In fact, in our subcultures in South Asia, what do? They sometimes slaughter an entire sheep. Really. That happened once. We went to a sheikh's house. He had literally the head of a sheep in rice. We're like, that's a little much, right? We're not used to that in America. Imagine a guy giving you a head of a sheep that's cooked. You're like, thank you. Right? So they feel that that's an honor. Why? Because the cheeks are the softest meat. Anyway, so that's the Medini way of showing honor to the guest. You might say it's a little over the top. Yeah, it's fine. But imagine how much do we go out of our way for our families? For our families. Like literally, what does it mean to go out of your way? What does it mean to think about your spouse after being married to them for 20 or 30 or 15 or 10 or 1 year? And going out of your way just like you would just imagine somebody says to you, just treat me like you would treat a guest from out of town. That would be enough for me. But that's your wife. That's your husband. That's why I felt it was one of the hardest ahadith. The Prophet's giving us a standard. You want to be the best. The best are those who are the best to their families, to your parents, to your spouses, to your children. And my wife, she made a commentary on this. She said that in fact, this notion of it being the hardest is only from the perspective of the person and a reflection of themselves. And wallahi sadaqt. You're right. Do you know why we find it hard? Because we've made this issue so difficult to understand. Because we don't do it. But look at what the Prophet ﷺ taught in social intelligence. Be good to those of nearest of kin. Do things out of the way. For example, Some in our community, when every time this comes around, like Mother's Day, for example. Oh, Mother's Day, we don't need Mother's Day. Every day is Mother's Day. So why do you treat your mother bad? Every day. Father's Day comes around, we don't need Father's Day. We already have Eid, right? So every day is Father's Day. But you don't treat your father well. What about getting a random gift for your mother and father? They don't live near you. Send them something in Amazon. Amazon Prime's all over now, right? And literally in 1 hour, they tell you by the hour when it can arrive. What if you get something random? Literally. And you make it a habit. Every month you do like 2 or 3 random gifts. Just because. To your wife, you bring random flowers. She's like, you haven't given me in 22 years. Well, we start now. Right? No, honestly. This is what it means. This is what the Prophet ﷺ taught. What does it mean to be the best? That means you go out of your way beyond even your norm to maintain that beautiful relationship. That's what the Prophet ﷺ taught in social intelligence. There's a lot that can be said just about within, and among them, just since we're on this topic, among them is how in-laws and parents treat their daughter-in-law, their son-in-law, or their son or their daughter. The social intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ with Ali and Fatima. Can you imagine if you were, well, first of all, imagine the Prophet ﷺ. He married his daughter to Ali. Did the Prophet ﷺ ever infringe on them and the decisions that they made? Never. Never. As a father-in-law or mother-in-law, the Prophet ﷺ taught, know your place. Your responsibility has been lifted in raising your children to be sound, mature, responsible, practicing Allah and His Messenger loving Muslims. Infringing your opinions on your children, and especially in their marriage, is haram. Is haram. Is not allowed. You are causing discord, or maybe a cause of discord towards the family. And so many relationships are stressed because of this. Because, for example, the father-in-law doesn't know his place. Or the mother-in-law doesn't know their place. Or the mother or father doesn't know their place. And their opinions are always made in areas that doesn't matter. This is not your place. This is the social intelligence of Rasulullah taught. Trust in Allah, pray for them. If they seek your advice, be there for them. But don't ever infringe on a relationship. Know the boundaries. And similarly, just as you expect the closest person to you to be your mother, know that you also married someone that has a mother. So some people, unfortunately, when they come to a marriage, they disregard the opinion of their wife, for example, or their husband, because their mother infringed a view into their marriage or opinion that she had. And they say, because the mother's status is so high, my wife's opinion doesn't matter. This is wrong. This is wrong in Islam. This is not right. When you marry, you are given the balance between knowing what your wife wants, and if there is reason that she may be not correct or etc., for you to communicate that to her in a very proper way, or a husband. But there's no such thing as my parents told me, so immediately I listen to them after you're married. This has nothing to do with Islam. Nothing to do with Islam, especially in marriage. This actually causes a lot of marital discord. The Prophet ﷺ taught this in social intelligence. A lot of the problems in our community, especially in our cultures, have a lot to do with this. Most marital problems have to do with this. Where there's no balance between in-laws and parents, and it creates fights. Right? Because why? Somebody may say even something improper about a person's parents. The opposite spouse, like they're too infringing on us, etc. The husband overreacts, the wife overreacts based on that, it creates a huge issue. Because there's no conflict resolution. Sometimes it requires you to step away and listen to the Prophet ﷺ. Give up an argument, even if you're right. There's no need to respond. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, from the perfection of one's Islam is leaving that which does not concern them. to not follow up a matter that is not a big deal and creating a big deal out of it. Alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned. Another example of that towards others is what the Prophet ﷺ has said. Allah has divided your character. إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَسَمَ بَيْنَكُمْ أَخْلَاقَكُمْ كَمَا قَسَمَ بَيْنَكُمْ أَرْزَاقَكُمْ. Allah has divided your character among you like He divides your rizq, your provision. Character is something from Allah. Allah gives from this dunya to those whom He loves and those whom He doesn't love. That's why you see people becoming rich and millionaires. And people, mashallah, they get from this world as much as He wants. Because He gives to whom He doesn't love, and also He gives to whom He loves. But He said He does not give iman to anyone except those whom He loves. فَمَنْ أَعْطَاهُ اللَّهُ الدِّينَ فَقَدْ أَحَبَّهُ. Whoever Allah grants iman, He has loved. He said, I swear by the one who holds my soul in their hand, a servant does not accept Islam until their heart and their tongue submits. Their heart and their tongue submits. And they don't believe until their neighbor is safe from their harm. They ask, what do you mean by harm, Ya Rasulullah? He said, their oppression and transgression. To the extent that the Prophet ﷺ said that Jibreel came to me and said that take care of the rights of your neighbor, take care of the rights of your neighbor, take care of the rights of your neighbor, to the extent that Rasulullah ﷺ said, I thought my neighbor is going to inherit me. So where's our neighbors? Do we even talk to them? Do we even offer them? Do we even speak to them? Okay, you haven't done it for 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, 3 years. Do it now. Go up to them and say, I've been a bad neighbor, I'm very sorry. So I want to introduce myself, etc. Or you just be nice to them and say, we'd love to invite you over. We'd love for you to bring them a dish of the biryani you love, or palau that I'm used to eating, right? Or mantu or whatever, and give it to them as a kind gesture. Food brings people's hearts together by their stomachs, right? And he said, a servant does not receive money from what's forbidden, and they spend it from it, except that Allah blesses them in. When you purify your wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you. Or gives charity, or He accepts it from them, and they don't leave behind their backs and gets rid of it, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes punishment from them. And a sin is not erased by another sin, but rather a sin is erased by good, and what's wretched is not going to be erased by what's wretched. Meaning, bad things will not come from bad things. The Prophet ﷺ in his social intelligence would also teach the Sahaba how to defuse conflicts. Among them is whoever does not have anything good to say, then let them speak good or stay quiet. This also has to do with your relationships. It also has to deal with when you deal with people. It also has to do with what happens at work. I remember when I used to work in the ER when I was in university, in pre-med, everyone in the workplace, especially when the entire thing is like toxic, they talk about each other. So you're in a circle, right? And I'm working, but it's the main nursing station. That's where I used to write my orders, etc. And all of the nurses and doctors are speaking about a person that's not there. Okay? Then one person from the group leaves, and what does the entire group do? Talk about them. And another person leaves, then they talk about them. It's like this. And I hated that. I just didn't participate, and I had my back turned and whatever. And one or two or three nurses noticed that. Like, hey, you don't like to talk with us when we're having our, office water cooler talk or whatever, right? I was like, I was taught never to speak about people behind their back, because if you do that, other people will know that you speak about them. And they kind of just like, thank you. Appreciate that. And you become known as a person of trust. So a lot of them would come to me with their relationship issues. And I'm sure you all have the same issue, right? So I had a lot of nurses, they would come to me and they're like, tell me about the boyfriends that they had and whoever they dated. I'm just like, why are you wasting your life, right? They're like, no, but you have to listen to what he did. I was like, no, I don't want to. But this is the reality, right? When you become known as a person of trust, people will trust you. One nurse in particular, he was fascinated by the fact that I pray and whatever. And it led him to kind of care more, and we started to discuss the financials. I don't take loans, for example, that are interest-based, and he would find that fascinating. So it leads to other discussions to Islam. They actually care and trust you. This is from the social intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ. That you become a man of your word or a woman of your word. You don't steal from work. right? I remember I took a pen and I went home and I had to go all the way back because I was like, I don't want to give this, because I don't know when I was going to come back to work and I was going to forget. So when I brought the pen, they were like, why do you care? I was like, this doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the office. And they were like, it's not a big deal. I was like, well, it's a big deal in our faith. You don't come late and not check in and then write a fake letter saying that you actually came at this time when you didn't. You don't do that. That's being untrustworthy. وَالْمُسْلِمُونَ عَلَى شُرُوطِهِمْ, the Prophet ﷺ said. All of this social intelligence is barakah in your life. You think you're going to save money because you cheated the system. Everyone's doing it, but the Muslim doesn't act in normative way that the rest of society does. That's the Prophet ﷺ social intelligence. You stay true to your uhud, your contracts, your covenants. Obviously, a lot has to do with time, which I need to work on. Brother Nihad here, mashallah, is on time. We need to come out at 7. I come out at 7:10. Because we got 5 minutes till to go to the masjid. He's there at 6:55, right? So that's something I need to work on for sure. Being on time. Alhamdulillah, today I was on time, so alhamdulillah, right? But time is something that's the Prophet ﷺ taught in terms of social intelligence. The Prophet ﷺ's, in fact, practice was in his day-to-day a walking school of discipline in social intelligence. When you read the seerah of Rasul ﷺ, I want you to have a notebook on your side and write these thoughts, these connections that you make of how the Prophet ﷺ taught us social intelligence. With that, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who are complete human beings through the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا وتب علينا يا رب العالمين اللهم ارزقنا مرافقة حبيبنا ونبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في أعلى جنة الخلد اللهم ارزقنا حسن الأخلاق لا يهدي إلى أحسنها إلا أنت اللهم جنبنا سيء الأخلاق لا يجنب سيء الأخلاق إلا أنت اللهم ارزقنا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا يا رب العالمين اللهم كمل نورنا في الدنيا والآخرة يا رب العالمين اللهم ارزقنا الإخلاص في القول والعمل والصدق في النية يا رب العالمين. Oh Allah, we ask that you send down upon us and shower us with your blessings and mercy. We ask that you forgive us and grant us the ability to implement what we say in our actions before our words. Oh Allah, we ask that you make us of those who are complete believers in the example of the Prophet ﷺ and following him. We ask you that you make us of those that are the best of his example in our communities and among our families and our spouses and to our parents and to our children and to all the Muslims and the believers as well as non-Muslims in our community. Oh Allah, make us of those that are the best to our neighbors and to those who we work with or that we study with in university or that we deal with in this community. Oh Allah, make us of those that implement your Islam in our daily lives and make us of those who are the best of your servants. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, make us of those that remove oppression and transgression from this earth, first from within ourselves and how we sin, and don't prevent us from the good that you have because of the evil that we commit. Oh Allah, we ask that you aid those of our Muslim brothers and sisters who are going through difficult times, those who are suffering maybe in silence, who face depression or anxiety or pain, that only you know, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Lift that from their hearts and grant them solace, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, be with them and aid them and allow us to be in their aid and help them, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, if any one of us is facing difficulties, to remove their difficulties. If any of us have loans that they cannot pay, oh Allah, pay them back their loans. Oh Allah, if any of us have any difficulties financially, then give us rizq from you that only you can give and bless us in our wealth. Oh Allah, allow us to have halal means of wealth. Oh Allah, grant us sufficiency with the halal that you give from the haram that we may be involved in. Oh Allah, make us of those that only seek what you have and we only have need in what you give us. Oh Allah, make us of those that are content with what you have given us. Oh Allah, decree the best of what is in this dunya and make us of those who grant and are granted the best of the halal so we don't seek the haram. Oh Allah, make us content with what you have given. Make us content with our spouses. Make us content with our work and our jobs. Make us of those that always seek the best of what you have given and the blessings that you have. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, grant us the highest companionship of the Prophet ﷺ in Jannah. Grant us his companionship with our parents, our spouses, our children, and all of the believers, Ya Rabbil Alameen, with his family, and Abu Bakr, and Umar, Uthman, and Ali, and all the Sahaba, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, lift the oppression against our Muslim brothers in Yemen. Oh Allah, lift the oppression against our Muslim brothers in Palestine, and in Syria, and in Iraq, and in Chechnya, and in Burma, and in Afghanistan, and in Central Africa, and in China, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, they are hungry, so grant them food. Oh Allah, there are those who don't have clothes, so grant them clothing. Oh Allah, they have been exiled or they have been jailed and imprisoned, so free them with you and your aid, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, destroy those who commit oppression with those who commit oppression, and free us and the Muslims without being involved in their oppression, Ya Rabbil Alameen. O Allah, make us of those that stand against injustice in our own communities, against racism and oppression wherever we are, whether it's within our own houses or our hearts and in our communities in the world, and make us of those that follow the example of the Prophet ﷺ. I think there's going to be, you want to do Q&A now or you want to do it later? We can do Q&A, inshallah. It can be about the subject or outside of the subject. And then Brother Nihad from Al-Maghrib, who they invited me. I'd like to first thank the masjid. May Allah bless all of you. Jazakumullah khair. May Allah make this a house that's amir bil-ta'ah, that is built on the righteousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and continues to serve the community in better ways. I'd also like to thank Al-Maghrib for making this possible. It's Qabilat Zamzam, the Al-Maghrib branch in Boston. And inshallah, I hope to visit this community again. Not just a one-day hit and run, as they say, right? Inshallah, I hope to come spend some time here. Bismillah. You want to say something?
No, I just want to.
Hold on. This mic is messed up. What did you say?
Just so that we pass that around.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one.
That's why I just took the ladies out there. Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. The hadith that was mentioned about Abu Dhar and Salman al-Farisi, is there a similar hadith about Abdullah bin Amr bin As when he got married? When Amr bin As took him to the Rasulullah and gave him the Psalm of Dawood. Is it similar or is it a different narration?
No, that's a different narration. So the question, you guys already heard the question. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the narration of Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, Salman al-Farisi is different. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, just to give you a heads up about his life. His father was who? Amr ibn al-As, good. Abdullah, the son of Amr, the son of As, all right? Amr ibn al-As, you know how old he was when he married? Good, yeah. He had Abdullah when he was 11 years old. There was only an 11-year difference between him and his father. And they both were Sahaba. They both were Sahaba. Okay? This shows you the kind of, first of all, not the marriage, there's no comparison. We live in a different type of environment and life. Nobody's getting married at that age for sure. So don't ask your father or your mother, right? But it shows you also the type of manhood and womanhood that they taught in that time. And that's something we need to raise in our children. How to be men, how to be women, how to be people of maturity and responsibility. One of the types of social intelligences that we lack in is honestly this aspect of communication and social dealings that many of us don't teach our children. For example, how to say no is not taught. For example, when you get, especially a young man, when he gets invitations from his friends, they don't know how to say no, right? Whether it's a family environment or whatever, I have to go hang out with my friends. Why? When are you going to be taught to say no? Or for example, this happens a lot when you go out, for example, to eat, and somebody maybe didn't bring their wallet or whatever, so somebody feels and always obliged to pay for the entire group. It's usually the Muslim kid, right? So how is it tactfully taught to a child to be responsible of their money? To not be the social bank for your friends. This was a problem I had, right? Another is, none of us is not taught the communication aspect of how to really communicate with other people. The social aspect of speaking to others. So, for example, one of them is this aspect of being kind, but not taking when somebody's speaking low to you. It's become a culture to be accepted, and bullying has become a norm. But our religion doesn't teach us to accept that. You don't stay quiet when someone's being bullied, and everybody laughs at that. No, you have to stand up. This is not okay. This leads to many other problems and ills. So that's Abdullah ibn Amr al-As. Anyway, So it was the same hadith of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As? No. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, the Prophet ﷺ explained to him a type of fasting called Siyam Dawood. Siyam Dawood. This is a hadith which is separate from the hadith of Salman al-Farisi. And that hadith, the Prophet ﷺ simply told him, he said that I could fast. He said, how much do you fast? He said, I fast this and much. He said, I can fast 3 days out of the month. He said, I can do more than that, Ya Rasulullah. So he told him fast every Monday and Thursday. He said, I can do more than that, Ya Rasulullah. He said, the best fasting is fasting one day and breaking your fast another day. And this is the Siyam of Dawood. So Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As said, I can do more than that, Ya Rasulullah. So he said, there is not better than that. That's the best. It was the Siyam of Dawood. So Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he said, I did this until I got old in age, and I regretted saying I will continue doing it. He said, I regretted it myself. But what were they? They were people of their word. That they continued something they never wanted to stop, a continuous thing they did. Yeah. Any questions? Sisters? No, the microphone. If you want to take the mic, great. If not, just raise your hands and maybe we can listen to you. Y'all have questions? Okay, we'll come back. Brothers? We're good? It can be outside the topic, it can be about the topic. It's fine. Don't ask me about like moon sighting issues or whatever. It's going to take an hour to explain this. Anybody? Good? No? Okay, alhamdulillah. Oh, yeah. Okay, never mind. Sisters? We're done? No, they don't have questions. Okay, we have a question here. Just speak. Oh, you don't have a question? Go ahead. Yes. Right. So the question is a multifaceted question. One of the questions is it equal for a man to pray in the masjid as it is for a woman to pray in the masjid, or is there a difference in reward? We'll start with that. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in a hadith that the most rewarding salah for a woman is in her home, in her basically sleeping chamber where the bedroom is, and to pray in that spot is the most rewarding. Yet the Prophet ﷺ encouraged women as much as men to come to the masjid. How? He said that لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله. Do not prevent the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the female servants of Allah, from the masajid of Allah. Umar radiallahu anhu said, I would have prevented my wife if it wasn't for the Prophet's statement. And the second question was, is it then encouraged for encourage our wives to come to the masjid? Yes, encourage them. But guaranteed they're not going to come with you all the time. Because they don't want to come all the time maybe, right? But at least leave that door open. If you're going to the masjid, offer. Offer. Why? Umar radiallahu anhu. Do you know the day he was passing away? Where did he die, by the way? Medina, right? How did he die? Did anybody know? Yes. Good. Someone stabbed him with a poison dagger in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. Do you know who was praying in the masjid at that time? By the way, which prayer was this? Fajr. Do you know who was praying in the masjid at that time? His wife. His wife was there when he got stabbed. So this shows you that it is just as equal and the reward is still given. The Prophet says, this is the best. This is the best. He also said in another hadith, what is the best rows for women in the masjid? The ones that towards the end of the masjid. And the idea is the ones that are the most furthest from the men. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ's masjid did not have a barrier until 1995. And I'm not joking, I'm being very honest with you. The Prophet ﷺ's masjid in Medina did not have a barrier between men and women until 1995. Yes, oh, exactly. Right? Who put that barrier there? The current Saudi kingdom. Before that, there was no barrier. Who of you have been there? Yes. Tell us about it. There was no barrier. Yes. Yes, the Baqiyah. They prayed in Baqiyah. How did you pray in the Rawdah? Where were the women? Everywhere, exactly. Women would pray wherever they want, men would pray where they want. I've met a dozen women that I've asked this question. How did you all pray? They're like, men would pray there, we pray here, wherever we want to pray. You say, Takbir Allahu Akbar, we pray, right? That's it. This concept of barriers was not present in the time of Rasulullah or Khulafa al-Rashideen or everybody in the Ummah until the Saudi kingdom. So where did this come from? This came from our cultures. Not from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Our cultures. Literally. And this happened in the outskirts or out part of the kingdoms of Islam. No problem. So just to finish up this. With that being said, there are instances where this rule of the best does not equal. For example, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned the reward of praying in the masjid is 27 times in the congregation. Okay? This reward is am. Al-am yanzil manzil al-umum hatta ya'ti khas. It's an am or a hukum am, a ruling that's general, is general for everyone until there's a specificity that is mentioned in the Quran or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. This hadith is am. Anyone who prays in the masjid is multiplied 27 times. If a woman decides she wants to pray in her house, then she will get the reward of the best prayer, more than the ones who pray in the masjid. Yes, but let's say, for example, there's a lecture in the masjid, or there's an event in the masjid. This is definitely better than her praying in her house, for her to attend and listen and to benefit. Or she wants to come pray in the masjid. Doesn't matter. Secondly, when it comes to the Haramain, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said that a woman that comes to visit the Haramain, he recommends her to her to pray in Masjid al-Nabawi and Masjid al-Haram as equally as a man. For sure. Or any righteous masjid like Masjid al-Aqsa, for example. Also, I'll add more to this. I'll get you, don't worry. The general society where we live in, the amount of religiosity that we're dealing with is at a crisis right now, right? So telling our sisters to not come to the masjid is antithetical to the crisis that we're facing in religiosity. In fact, the amount of times we come to the masjid ourselves, maybe once, twice, 3 times a week itself. So in our time, I would say it's definitely generally encouraged to come to the masjid. Generally encouraged to come to the masjid, based on the time that we live in. Secondly, this is particularly in the case when 90% of our community don't pray. There's 15 or 10,000 Muslims in Hartford, Windsor area, maybe, right? Right? 5,000? Less? More? How many? How many? No, not Connecticut. This area, Windsor, Hartford. How many? 15,000. Where's the masjid? Where are people? I know they're watching like Saturday night college football, all right? Or whatever. Right, I agree. But our masajid aren't even full except Jummah. And that, all the people that attend Jummah is like maximum 10% of that 15,000. So you're telling them don't come to the masjid? It's antithesis. It doesn't make any sense. There's a number of things I wanted to also say, but we'll leave it at that, inshallah. Uncle had something before you, then you, okay? Go ahead.
My question was, in today's time and place we're living in a non-Muslim and a minority environment,
100%.
it is more encouraged from women to come to learn something.
Exactly.
Than the one who raises kids.
100%. It's more encouraged for women to come to the masjid for them to learn. Young man, you have a question?
My question was,
Yes. 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 Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, I'll explain to you in the most detailed way I can. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that praying by yourself is not as rewarding as if you were to pray in a congregation. Congregation in Islam were differed upon amongst the scholars of fiqh what qualifies as a congregation. So some of them said 2 people, some of them said 3, etc. The idea is you're more than one person. So if you and your mom or you and your wife or you and your family pray, you're a congregation even. So that reward of that prayer is much more than even if you were to pray alone in your house. So make it a habit that you have a place, a musalla in your house, and you pray in congregation. In fact, we're talking about social intelligence. In Austin, when we're invited to, da'wats, right? For sure, there's many people there that don't pray. For sure. Okay? One of the ways, subhanAllah, we had an effect of that is not to have a talk, a speech. There doesn't always need to be a talk, right? For sure. All we did is establish jama'ah salah. And what do is you put the oldest of you, like an uncle or auntie, all right? And they announce it's salah time. All they do is we're going to pray salah, namaz. They go and somebody just leads the salah in congregation. People will be very embarrassed, okay, to not join. So you're kind of like embarrassing them into salah. That's fine, okay? It started out like this. A lot of people were embarrassed. Straight out, some people did not pray, okay? But over time, subhanAllah, now the entire da'wat which we normally invite us, all of them pray regularly now. No one gave them speeches. No one then talked about fire and like none of that. Simply making it a social norm to make salah like you're drinking water. Oh, we got to pray. It's like eating food, right? It's the norm. You build that into your da'wat, that's how you influence people. That's how you influence people. By nature, conversation will come about deen. The Prophet ﷺ, just to social intelligence here, his main da'wah in Islam was not giving speeches in the masjid in a mic. The main way the Prophet ﷺ taught was personal relationships with people. In fact, for his family, the way he taught his family is passing moments that would be an opportunity the Prophet ﷺ took to teach his children, for example, or his wives. For example, they were walking in the streets, and some people from the Jewish tradition in Medina, they said to the Prophet ﷺ, what? Assalamu alaikum. By the way, that literally means to this day, may destruction fall on you. Right? To this day, assam means destruction fall on you. We actually looked at this in Hebrew. Okay? So assam means destruction be on you. And the Prophet ﷺ was about to respond to them when Aisha started speaking. It's a game over. It's fire, right? Khalas. So she started hurling at them. No, assam be upon you. You X, Y, and Z. And he said a bunch of things about them, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, yeah, Aisha. Gentleness, when it's put in something, it beautifies it. And when it's removed from something, it makes it ugly. It would have been enough for you to just say, wa alaikum, and on YouTube. And just kept walking. Look at the beautiful, this principle is a pillar in our character. It's a pillar in dealing with others. Look at the social intelligence of the Prophet ﷺ. So he just taught her, be gentle with people. Even with those who have horrible manners. Like when you're in Price Chopper, for example, right? And some lady yells at you, go back home, you right? This happens in Texas. I don't know if it happens in Connecticut, right? Probably not, right? So it happens one time. And what do? We're like, you go back home too. You're from Poland. It's okay. And they kind of look at us like, what? No, we just say, be nice to them. Be gentle. They kind of actually will laugh sometimes, right? Just be gentle in your dealings with people. And that's with regards to. So, the salah is multiplied in congregation. And when it's in a masjid, it's multiplied even more than the congregation. And depending on how big the congregation is, multiplied by that number of people there as well. The Prophet ﷺ said the most beloved prayers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that has the most people in it. the most people in it. And it's multiplied by the amount of people that are there. You understand? So that is equal to men and women, inshallah ta'ala, in general case. Especially in the times that we're living in, wallahu alam. Yes, sister. Yes. Yes. Right. Good. So this question, I actually was going to say something and speak about it, but I'm glad the sisters just asked the question. The question was, what about if one of our sisters or a lady is in her menses, what about coming to the masjid then? The beautiful thing is I'm Hanbali. Okay? So I'm going to tell you what the Hanbali madhab says about this, which I believe, I'm going to write an article about this soon, inshallah. The Hanbali madhab says it's absolutely okay for a woman in her menses or a person who happens to be in janaba, whether it's man or woman, to come to the masjid even if they're in their menses. As long as they make wudu before they come and they come sit in the masjid, it's okay. This is the official decision of the Hanabila. Takbir Allahu Akbar, right? So the Hanabila say it's completely fine. They don't have to be in the back, they don't have to go to a different room, they don't have to be in an... No, they can be in the masjid. And you know how powerful that is in Hajj and Umrah? When women come and they're in their menses and they can't come, according to some of the madhahib, they can't be in the Masjid al-Haram or Masjid al-Nabawi until they're done. So our madhab, alhamdulillah, no worries. This is the view of Imam Ahmad and this is the school of the Hanabila. And that's the view I hold. All they have to do is do wudu before they come and that's it, they're good. Wallahu alam. Fair? You're like, I've never heard that before in my life. Well, now you did. Now you did. Alhamdulillah. This is the Hanbali view. Anybody have questions? We have about 5 minutes, inshallah. Sisters? No? Yes? When it comes to social intelligence, how do we deal with people from the LGBT community? This is a loaded question because the reality is you would deal with people from the LGBT community as you would deal with anybody from anywhere, right? You don't treat people differently based on how they identify. We as Muslims treat people equally no matter where they're from, what they look like, which color they are, or whatever, right? So one of the most beautiful things is we've created some of these topics as stigmas that we disagree with among ourselves and within the community. But I don't remember walking into this masjid and there was a sign at the door, what's your homosexuality? Before you say, Bismillah, tawakkaltu ala Allah, wa la hawla wa quwwata illa billah, Allahumma aftah li wa rahmatik, and you enter the masjid. Was it there? Did I miss that sign? Did you have to check your sexuality at the door? Right? Did they ask you what color you're from, which country you're from? Everyone from Pakistan go to the Gujarati masjid or something like that? Doesn't happen right here. Alhamdulillah, right? That's the beauty of our masajid. These are some of the most inclusive spaces in the country. You will never go to a place as diverse as what you see here. I guarantee you. Go visit churches in America. Our community by nature makes our spaces inclusive, but we as Muslims are the ones who've made it exclusive. So people who are struggling with something like this doesn't stop anyone from inviting them or coming them to the masjid or treating them fairly or speaking to them about their issue, etc. There's no issue with that whatsoever. And as well, if you happen to deal with people from the, and I think it's weird when we speak to others based on the sexuality they have. You don't say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi, I'm heterosexual. Do you know what I'm saying? And I don't think it's fair for you to characterize others by their homosexuality either. Right? Dave, the homosexual guy that you work with, that's horrible. That's not something that our religion teaches us. So speak to them at a human level just like you speak to anybody else. Right? That's what our faith teaches us in social intelligence. The Prophet, now, okay, this is something we believe it's a sin. This is something that's not going to change. Right? This is our values and ideals, what we are taught. It's ingrained into the Quran. It's not something that we even choose to change. We believe that everyone struggles with sins. And we believe that this is the Abrahamic morality that we follow. In the Christian faith, in the Jewish faith, this all came from Ibrahim alayhi salam. And we believe that we also have certain vices that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to us to forbid from us doing. For example, like committing adultery. For those of you who are single men, you're not allowed to sleep with another woman, even. Forget another man. Isn't that right? Or a woman cannot sleep with another man. Forget another woman. So this is just equally the same. There's nothing weird about it. This is just how our faith is. So if you accept the Islamic faith, this is something you have to accept. If a person struggles with this, just like they struggle with dating, just like they struggle with the need to have a companion, they have to struggle with not obliging in a sin that Allah says is sinful. The beautiful thing is for a person, they may say, I can't accept a faith which asks me to be somebody that I'm not. This is something that's normally said. We say to them, since when did accepting the true nature of God and the reality of life have anything to do with the identity you chose to be identified by your sexuality? How can you reject that truth based on an inclination that you may have? Fine, the wording of inclination even is offensive to some people. They say, I was born with this. Okay? I actually admit that may be offensive to some people, right? These are just wordings or vernacular that we use. But with that being said, this does not stop us from inviting people. Islam is open to everyone. What if somebody were to commit those, we believe it's still a sin, but does not remove them from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah judges us all. We have sins ourselves. Somebody may have arrogance that lead them to hellfire and they're heterosexual. Isn't that right? Was it bliss in the LGBT community? No, of course not. That's not something we characterize people by or judge them to hell or console them to heaven because of it. Is that clear? And if I were to go into some historical detail, you would be surprised. This issue is something that even sultans in the Muslim kingdom dealt with. Sultans. I'm not going to mention the country and the place, okay? Because I'm not going to get trouble with that. This is being recorded, by the way. La ilaha illallah, we're going to get in trouble. But there's this issue. I'll give you an example. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, in his book, Disciplining the Soul. You'll find this in English by the book. He talks about among the disciplining of the soul the Prophet ﷺ taught is to withhold your internal and natural want to fulfill your desire. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called it hawa. Hawa. وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى. Don't follow your desire, your natural inclination to want more than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has limited you to. Okay? Interestingly enough, hawa comes from the root, the source in Arabic from two words. Khaliya and suqut. Meaning emptiness and to fall. As if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, if you constantly try to chase what you desire, it only leads you to the black hole of emptiness. You will never be fulfilled. It will make you fall. This is the beauty of the Arabic language. So, among this way of not indulging in yourself and your desires, he said, even if a man was interested in another man, and he withheld himself from it. Wallah, this is in Ibn al-Jawzi, in his work. So this issue is not something new in our community. The scholars spoke about it, and Imam al-Nawawi speaks about it. Ibn Hazm wrote a letter to another, one of his friends, in a very almost lustful way, saying that we are good friends, but we can't roll like that, basically, more or less. Right? Because he found him to be attractive. This is something that our religion even deals with. So just as you withhold yourself from the opposite gender, we also withhold ourselves from the same gender. This is from the desires that the Prophet ﷺ in his social intelligence spoke about. Allah.
Inshallah, we'll do the prayer now and start prayer.
Okay.
And we have a short reminder from Nihad for Al-Maghrib Boston about the upcoming class. And then we'll make adhan and we'll pray shortly thereafter, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad.
Alright, bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala ma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for inviting us to this community. My name is Nihad. I'm from Al-Maghrib, Boston. Qabila Zamzam. Some of you may have taken classes with us, so I just wanted to invite you shortly about our next class. It's about the story of Musa alayhi salam, and it's going to be taught by Sheikh Muhammad Mania. So I just wanted to share quickly two stories about the life of the Musa alayhi salam that you may or may not have thought about. Musa alayhi salam's story, as you know, is the most oft-repeated story in the Quran, right? And to the point that we recite a portion of it in Surah Kahf on Friday as well. The Musa alayhi salam story, one of the starting points is that, he committed manslaughter, right? He committed manslaughter, and after that, after the manslaughter, we need to know, what's the extent of remorse one should feel from a sin that is committed, right? And we know that Allah has forgiven him. But in the story of Musa, have you reflected on the fact that in the story of Khidr, when Khidr kills the boy, right? Musa alayhi salam has the strongest, reaction to it, right? قَدْ بَلَغْتَ مِن لَدُنِّي عُذْرًا. Meaning that this is, means if I ask you anything about, if I ask you anything about this any further, you have a strong excuse from me, like I cannot continue anymore. Because he is remembering back to the manslaughter that he has committed. So we can contextualize this story and gain so much more about it. And we also know that during the day of judgment, Musa alayhi salam still remembers that manslaughter, and when the people come to him, he says that nafsi nafsi, go to another prophet, right? Because he remembers that. So that's one point. The second point, have you reflected that in the story of Musa alayhi salam, there is nationalism involved. So when Musa alayhi salam comes with the signs to the Fir'aun, okay, and the signs are very blatant, right? And what does he say? He says, have you come to drive us out of your land, O Musa, right? This has some implication, because Musa alayhi salam's ancestry goes back to Yusuf alayhi salam, right? And Yusuf alayhi salam was working in a non-Muslim government, because he was in the terminology is Malik, right? The king. So one of the opinions is that Yusuf alayhi salam were working in this government, which is a foreign government, and then there was a revolt. And the native Egyptian revolted and gained the upper hand. And the Pharaoh came into power. The pharaonic system of government came into power. And when that came into power, naturally, those that were allied with the previous administration, they were enslaved, and that is Bani Israel. And that's why Musa alayhi salam is sent to this situation here. And Pharaoh is reminding his courtiards and his people that, remember what these guys did. They were rulers and stuff like that. We revolt against them. Have you come to drive us out of our land, O Musa, right? So he's using nationalism to scapegoat a community of Bani Israel. And you can see that also, like whenever there is good that comes to the community, Pharaoh said, this is from us. Whenever something bad happens, like the locusts, the lice, and the blood, and the punishments from Allah, he says this is from Bani Israel. So again, they're blaming a minority community. So there's so many gems to be learned like that, and inshallah, that's what we'll be discussing in Boston. Sheikh Muhammad Mane, just to give a short introduction about it, he graduated from University of Medina very recently, and he graduated from the Quranic Sciences Department, which is very few graduates come from that department, because he has to master the 10 Qira'at along with the Quranic Sciences. So this will be a beautiful class. It's a full weekend class with various recitations and taking gems from the story of Musa alayhi salam. Now for the Connecticut folks, I have seen like 5 or 6 Connecticut people carpool and go to attend classes for the weekend. This is on October 19th weekend, October 19 to 21. And we are trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys to come. So I don't want any financial excuses or any excuses about accommodations to stop you guys from coming. Sisters and brothers alike, okay? Me and my wife try to be as accommodating as possible, as well as our volunteers. So inshallah, for the brothers, we have an Airbnb reserved already. So if you guys are coming from out of town for it's just about less than 2 hours away, Boston, you guys can come and stay overnight, no problems, okay? If you have any financial problems, we have financial aids. If you're studying at UConn, you cannot afford it, we have a student rate as well. So we're trying to make it as comfortable for you guys to attend. We just want to share the knowledge and the beauty of the story of Musa alayhi salam. So if you would like to register, I'm going to give out my personal phone number because I'm not Sheikh Hasib, and you can have my phone number, okay? So let's go. All right. So if you guys are interested registering with the class because the screens are not working, 201-256-5590, okay? 201-256-5590. You just text me your name and email address, inshallah, and we'll. And yeah, okay, yeah. Zabi is over here, and you can talk to me after prayers, inshallah. And my wife Bushra is over there as well, and Khadija, who is one of our volunteers. We came from Boston to, inshallah, serve the community over here. Jazakumullah khair for your time. Thank you for listening so patiently, and we'll get into prayer. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.